Good day, everyone. We are from De La Salle University, Las Marias, Cavite, Philippines, and we are going to present our paper, which is the economic impact of COVID-19 restrictions in resort industry in Indang, Cavite. I am Leslie Tacorda.
I'm Mearah Malabanan.
And I am Andrea Valdez.
And we are your presenters for today. So next slide, please.
For the biography, Indang Cavite is one of the places suffering from COVID-19 pandemic, affecting markets, livelihoods, infrastructure, and opportunities on all continents. It includes reducing places to go beaches, hotels, and resorts, traveling in several countries and cities in terms of economic impact, following new protocols and guidelines by the government, observing, isolating those that are infected, and taking swab tests whenever one wants to travel outside. That is ideal for both business and pleasure. Since it is a little town, people usually consider stopping here for a brief break before continuing to the neighboring cities. Next slide, please. According to the GMA News Online, while there's COVID-19 pandemic, there is a resort in Indang, Cavite that plenty of tourists went there without noticing or preventing physical distancing. Young and old people congregated in the streets and cottages, which were frequently congested. Face shields and masks were not worn by many visitors, in which the government and tourism sectors are empowered to impose rules and regulations on destinations in order to protect tourist attraction. In Republic Act 95/93 or Tourism Act of 2009, the DOT is chargeable for enacting formalities that regulated the activity and activities of all tourism businesses. While the virus cannot be completely eradicated by means like mass vaccination, a requirement to incorporate recommendations is needed to send revised health and safety procedures within the procedures of accommodation establishments within the new normal situation. Next slide, please. Furthermore, the Department of Tourism, DOT, or in 2020, when it involves accommodation establishments, visitors must fill out a health declaration form upon arrival. Only clear guests by security are going to be able to access the boundary to test in. Also, the huge impacts are being experienced on the macro and micro levels of tourism sectors. Next slide, please. For the abstract, the study refers to the resort industries that you can visit inside Indang that has a socio-economic impact of COVID-19. The study is qualitative research, and the selected resorts that are chosen are the resorts that are famous in Indang with the help of participation of the owners of the selected resorts. Because it is used to assess opinions, actions, and other categorical characteristics. To simplify the results of a larger population, this study takes a quantitative method. To acquire the essential data, survey questions are utilized. In addition, to determine the total number of respondents, a statistical processing method was utilized in data gathering. The average technique of weight and ranks are utilized for economic impacts. To answer the questions, researchers use online learning and use a Google form as a data gathering method. Also, researchers send the survey form link via social media platforms. So as a tourism student, it is the will of the researchers to find out more about the consequences of the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in tourist destinations, particularly the resort, which is the focus of this study.
In the description, we have 5 categories, which are the sales, revenue, wage payment, employment, and financial conditions. These are the areas of the businesses that are mostly affected by COVID-19 pandemic. The effect on MSME sales, which is the micro, small, and medium enterprises study, traced down 59.9% of micro enterprises in March 2020. Because of the short-term closing of the company trailed with small companies along with average companies, recommending real effect on micro enterprises. MSMEs that were constantly during the lockdown encountered vital call deals. 27.7% on miniature, 43.6% on small, and 41% on average size companies, which encountered a business decline of 30% in March since February. Each area or administrations assembling had no deals on the following lockdown because several MSMEs had a deal expansion due to requests through the lockdown. As an example, selling exchange offering everyday merchandises and goods. The effect on MSME's revenue happened just like the outcome for MSME's agreements. It has 61.7% of microenterprises without salary in March 2020 because of business terminations, supported by small companies plus average companies. MSMEs that worked during the lockdown had an intense call income, including miniature, small, and medium-sized companies, having a 30% income decline during March since February. In general, many MSMEs employment encountered a lockdown. However, MSMEs started decreasing representative from the start to continue, particularly in assembling and administrations. The bigger the company's scope, the more extra working choices were available. Along with the average size companies, 41.1% reduced their workers' working hours, then 34.8% on small companies, along with 26.5% on micro enterprises. Minor firms had a lot of trouble in introducing this course of action. An enormous part of MSMEs has been postponed wage payment to representatives after the coronavirus and quarantine, and this was more obvious for micro enterprises and buildings. Around 30% of small and average activities are declined within the full compensation payments to representatives after the incident. Over 20% of MSMEs in assembling agricultural business decreased their wage expenses. In the financial conditions, most MSMEs came up on short on the economic situation and wanted to maintain their business after the quarantine. The aspect in terms of capital loss were more genuine in adding companies. It has 43.8% of miniature, 23.2% on small, and 3.9% on standardized project without money or spare funds at the hour of the overview. Furthermore, 61.4% of standard size, 53.1% of small, and 37.8% of micro enterprises announced that there are finished assets in a very month. Just 14.8% of miniature, 19% of small, and 28.7% of the standard size company had enough capital and investment to make all the difference of business for a month. Each of the areas face a scarcity of assets.
So for this whole research paper, this study is designed to help the resort economy in this situation, particularly in Indang, Cavite, by conducting a survey and assessing the situation to carry out a planned long-term action. So this paper shows different percentage and data about the 5 categories, which is mentioned earlier, which is sales, revenue, employment, wage payment, and financial conditions when it comes to the performances of each resort in Indang, Cavite. So some are high percentages and some are low. But to summarize, all are significant to the whole study of this research. Also, to conclude, Indang is having a challenging time recovering because of the damage of the pandemic. And as an effect, there are big adjustments to be implemented just for the business to continue, especially tourism sites like resort industries. But even though the pandemic happened, they used the time to improve their facilities, resulting in a secure economic condition. So the most complicated issue we face in this crisis is finding the correct balance between preventing not only the damage caused by the COVID-19, but also the damage caused by the substantial downturn of economic activity. And as a result, we must devise clever techniques for reopening enterprises while reducing health concerns. Make sales the focal point of your plan. Look to your sales function to win business because sales are where strategy is put into action as it connects all your offerings to the market. So create policies and procedures for social distancing, hygiene, cleaning, and general operations. Employees should be educated in new policies and procedures. Make sure you have all the tools and resources you will need to reopen securely. Website, when clients search for you, update the site so that you can reopen plans and practices are evident. So if your websites offer slide chat, you may wish to have an automatic message appear that summarizes the most valuable information. Channels on social media creates a series of posts for each platform of business utilizes and distribute them regularly in the weeks leading up to your opening and during your first few weeks back in operation. Frequent updates on your team and operations will demonstrate to your employees that you are open to business and actively responding to their requirements. Also, always keep an open mind. Don't get caught up in the perpetual flux. Consider everything that might be able to help you improve your situation. While most of what happened during the pandemic were out of your hands, it is vital to remember that you may always have an impact to things, adapt in a unique situation, and act quickly. So, this is our presentation about the economic impact of COVID-19 restrictions in the resort industry in Indang, Cavite, Philippines. Here's our references. I hope we have imparted informations. Thank you.